Hello and welcome to the Mixtape podcast. I am your host, Mark. Thank you so much for joining me on this week's show. Before we get into the chat, just very quickly, if you enjoy the show this week, I would absolutely love it if you left a comment or rated the show 5 stars wherever you are listening. You can find all my social media links, my YouTube channel, and the full radio show on demand just by visiting the mixtapepodcast.com, and there you will find over 175 episodes just waiting for you to discover. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's mixtape. I am your host, Mark, right here on Radio Fremantle 107.9 FM. And today on the show, it is an absolute pleasure to be chatting again for the second time to Andy Scott from Sweet. How are you, mate?
I'm all right. It's a bit hot. We're getting a heat wave here.
It is.
We're at 30 degrees. I know for you that's not a heat wave, but to us it is.
I mentioned at the top there, it's the second time I've had the pleasure of chatting to you. I'm not sure if you remember the first time, but it was. I can tell you it was almost 2 years to the day. I know that for fact, for two reasons. The first one is we talked about your birthday the last time we spoke, and that had only just happened. But what made it stand out for me was, and I cut this out of the original interview, I don't know if you'll remember this, but England were playing in the European Championships, and I asked you if you were looking forward to the game and you were going to get them behind the team, and you went, "No, I'm Welsh."
No, I always get behind England, Scotland, Ireland. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I even get behind Australia, Canada, and anything that's got the New Zealand, anything that's got, except for in the rugby, of course.
Obviously, for anyone listening down the line, we're recording this during the World Cup. England have just sensationally beaten Mexico. All right, Andy, let's talk about the tour then. The Final Blitz Australian Tour. You're kicking it off in Perth at the Astafair on the 30th of October. And then throughout November, loads and loads of shows right across the country, finishing up in Brisbane on the 28th of November. MetropolisTouring.com if you want to check out where exactly all the dates are and grab your tickets and all that other good stuff. First question, Andy, is this really it? Is this the final tour for you?
I didn't come up with the title, but I do appreciate what they're trying to say. My agent tries to look after me and my health. My son, my tour manager, tries to do the same. And we never know what's around the corner, do we? And I'm 77 just, and I'm now thinking, look, when I was in my 20s, I was wondering, God, I'm going to feel old when I hit 30. Now, I want to hit 80 if I can, even with all my little health issues, So I wouldn't completely rule it out, but let's just say that if it is the last, it's going to be a great one,
Fantastic, going out with a bang. Is there one particular memory of a tour in Australia that stands out to you as particularly memorable?
I suppose one of the first big dates we did, the Horden Pavilions in Sydney, we had a lot of different acts. We played there for two nights or 2 days. I know that Andy Gibb, one of the youngest of the Bee Gees, was there. Somebody told me that Bon Scott's band was there, the one just before AC/DC, but I'm not sure about that. I think somebody was just trying to tie too many things together there. And the size of the venue and the way the crowd reacted, that will always be an impact. But I also, on one of the later tours in the 80s, we played Mount Isa, a great big hole in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
We flew in. The truck took a day to get there across, went straight after one gig in somewhere like Brisbane or Cairns and just drove straight across there. And even then, it arrived only an hour before we were due to play, so we went on stage late. And then the next day, they got straight back in their trucks and drove back, and we lazily got on a plane and had a day off somewhere. But that was something because, these guys, they go out, it's like working on like an oil rig or something like that. They go out for a month at a time. And I guess, it's going to drive you stir crazy, because it's constantly hot. There's only one or two places that you can go. You're all sleeping within each other's elbows. It's so to have a band like us go out there and do a gig.
I can attest to that because I did that kind of work myself when I first came to live in Australia for 10 years. And most of the time I did 2 weeks away and 2 weeks at home, and the way you described it there is pretty it's pretty accurate. I think things have probably got the comfort level's probably gone up a little bit since those days. So when you look out in the crowd these days, Andy, and at a show, what's the sort of demographic do you see, like, when you look out there? Are there sort of still quite a lot of young people out in your shows?
Oh yeah, it's a wide range. It's no longer the no dad kids who are, like, you're coming to see the Sweet with me. Oh no, dad, no, they've found it for them. See, there are some good parts, good things that happen on the internet, and getting stuff like this out there, help.
And sort of Guardians of the Galaxy and that sort of thing probably helps well. And just about a month ago, I sat down with my son and watched Wayne's World with him. And obviously, with Ballroom Blitz is a big feature in that track. So I think that helps as well. I'm sure, like with the songs in the movies and stuff as well, especially like Guardians of the Galaxy, something as huge as that.
Yeah, we know that our tracks have been sitting in, the choice box, if you like, for these kind of modern films like Marvel and things like that. And I mean, I'm a big Marvel fan, so whoever it is, please go back in the box and pick another sweet track for your next one.
Talking about sweet tracks, Andy, if you had to introduce Sweet to someone who'd never heard the band before, what one song would you pick and why?
You couldn't pick one song, could you? Not really. I'd certainly pick Love Is Like Oxygen, but that wouldn't be representative of where we'd been.
Right, okay.
I would probably say, and not even Fox on the Run, so it would have to be something like Ballroom Blitz.
Yeah.
And then Love Is That Oxygen, but also with a smattering of Fox on the Run as well, because that shows you the development.
And with the Sweet name, Andy, you've been obviously carrying the band for a long time yourself. Like, do you feel a responsibility still, like, to fans to keep going and keep gigging and keep touring?
It shouldn't be like that, but in the end, it does become that. I've always said that you shouldn't do what you don't want to do, and that's why I do what I do, because I enjoy it. We're all OCD. You do realize that, musicians, to be able to sit in a studio and listen to the same piece of music for an hour and tweak little bits. It's a form of OCD, and I also think that you shouldn't, as I said before, you shouldn't do things that you don't enjoy. So mixing all that up, being in a band, and I have to say, what else would I do now at my age? I'm unemployable now. And also getting on stage and playing those songs, night after night, possibly. That's definitely OCD. But then you see the gratification, that the audience come away with, and we come away with, because the exhilaration when you come off stage, absolutely knackered and sweating. Well, I sweat. The others don't sweat as much, but
We'll be sweating in Australia in November, that's for sure, mate. You'd have to get yourself some portable aircon units or something like that for being on stage. It's going to be warm, I think. I've got a new section to the interview, Andy, that I've brought in since we chatted last. And I'm calling it the Quick Fire 5, but you can elaborate on the answers if you want. They don't have to be like quite short answers. And these are all 5 questions around touring and live shows and stuff like that I ask everybody who comes on. First one, Andy, is do you have a pre-show ritual?
No. The ritual is a fist bump. We don't have any of this. We don't have any of this Americana where they all put their hands in and go, yeah, for the cameras. No, we don't have anything like that. We're British,
Yeah, absolutely. And what's on your tour rider, mate? Anything weird or interesting?
On my tour rider? Oh,
yeah.
No, it's. I think that our singer, if Jin wasn't on there, I think he'd have a problem. But I think that we're pretty normal, really. We don't drink a lot of alcohol before the show anyway. And in fact, there are 3 of us in the band who hardly drink anything at all. And our bass player says he likes to have a little sip of brandy because it's medicinal. But other than that, in fact, I think the road crew drink more than we do.
Medicinal, yeah, that old chestnut. We've all used that one before. What is your favourite city to play live, Andy?
Difficult. Very, very difficult. Stuttgart.
Excellent. And why Stuttgart?
Everywhere we've been, every time we return to Stuttgart, it's not a big place that we play. It's about 1,200 people. but it's phenomenally uplifting. They're there for you, you know.
Ever had any on-stage disasters, Andy?
Too many. I remember putting a guitar across a synthesizer that would not stay in tune. This is the bad old days when I used to play keyboards and guitar back in the 70s, and smashing my guitar across an ARP synthesizer. So that was never going to work for the next night.
No, that wasn't going to fix it, no.
No, in Miami. The first one that comes to mind is we'd spent a fair bit of time and money creating this new show at the Rainbow Theatre in London, and it was a big kind of Christmas show, no, New Year's show it was, and we'd been sponsored by this new equipment company, and it had been working really well. And in between the rehearsals and the gig, they had this brilliant idea to put DIs on the back of the amplifiers without telling us. And the first thing that happened was when we walked on stage and hit the first chord, the whole thing blew up. Now, somebody hadn't thought it through. You know, I was wondering why the mics weren't on the speakers, and it all went dark. And then the older amplifiers that hadn't been doctored with were put up there. And then we realized the PA had gone. We had a support band called Geordie, which had Brian Johnson as the lead singer. They use the speakers called, they use these amps called Orange amplification. Now, not my kind of sound, but that's what we were offered. So that they were wheeled on, and then we realized that all this intricate stuff that we were going to be doing had to be ditched. And we went on there and we played for an hour of just the hits, and walked off stage with our tail between our legs, but vowing that we're going to repair this. And we put a Christmas show in immediately, went back to, bought a PA from Dave Martin, got re-rigged ourselves with all the Marshall stuff, and went on there and did the most phenomenal show at Christmas. In fact, it was so, we had these flame pots that went off at the end of the show, and we had 2 Christmas trees either side of the stage, and they caught fire. Christmas trees catching fire. We had roadies out there with, you know, the powder to kind of, you know, cut it all off. And well, you read about these things, don't you? You know, theatre caught fire.
I think as far as on stage disasters go, that's probably one of the most disastrous stories we've ever had on the show. That sounds like an absolute nightmare.
You're listening to the mixtape.
All right, Andy, let's talk about your mixtape track choices then. So as you've been on once before already, I did give you the B-side track choices, which are reserved for people that I've had the pleasure of chatting to for a second time. So track 1 of your mixtape B-side is, what was the first song you ever learned to play or sing, mate?
It was, and it is, Apache, The Shadows. It wasn't very good because I didn't even know how to tune the guitar back then. So I was playing the wrong thing on the wrong frets. And when somebody tuned my guitar, I said, I can't play it anymore.
To relearn it. Did you do the little shadows, like sort of dance? You know, that little dance I used to do with the steps. Did you do that as well?
Well, me and my brother with the tennis rackets, we used to do that. We went to see The Young Ones, the film, and we both came out of there going, that's what we want to do. Those red things, those red guitars.
Was Hank Marvin someone who sort of early inspiration for you, Andy, as a player?
Yeah, but by the time I got into my first band, nobody wanted to play bass, so I became the bass player for about 2 or 3 years. And it wasn't until I got like 1966 where I became the guitar player for real. I could always play guitar, but the bands that I played in always seemed to need a bass player. So like McCartney, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And track 2 of the mixtape B-side, Andy, is what's a song you would put on a compilation for a road trip if you were going on a road trip? What would you choose for that?
Well, there'd be a few, but Ramble On by Led Zeppelin is one of my favourite tunes of theirs. Everybody thinks of Led Zeppelin as this hard rock, nasty riff kind of band, and they're not. They're a band who are a little bit of folk, a little bit of R&B, little blues. They're hard to pin down, and Ramble On is one of the tracks that absolutely shows that off. You know, when you consider what they had to work with, the recording-wise back then, you know, probably 4-track, 8-track, it's superb, you know.
Track 3 is your favourite duet or collaboration.
I couldn't think of one initially, but then I had to go back to the Righteous Brothers with You've Lost That Loving Feeling. But then something came to me this morning when I was in the shower. I loved that Robert Plant and Alison Krauss, or the Everly Brothers track that they did, Gone, Gone, Gone.
Oh, yeah. Is that on Raising
great.
Sand? Is that on that album? That
Yeah.
Garner album? Yeah.
Honestly, that's a great duet as well. But I'll stick with the You've Lost That Loving Feeling.
Sweet or ever collaborated with anyone? Any memorable collaborations or guest vocalists or anything you've ever had with the band?
It's never come to that. I really wish it had. The only thing that we did, we got a girl singer in, Mutt Langer's wife, Stevie Langer, to sing a duet with Brian on Lettre d'Amour from the Level-Headed album.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that it was a duet. It was like a girl answering his love letters,
Track 4 for this mixtape, the B-side, is a track from a live album, mate. What'd you pick there?
I love people like Mose Allison and Wes Montgomery, and I'm a bit of a jazzer, when it comes to it. I used to go to Ronnie Scott's fairly regularly to just hang out late at night if I was in London. And anyway, Mose Allison, he did a song called I Live the Life I Love, and I love the life I live. And I'm trying to remember what album it's from, but it's definitely his live version is the best version of that song.
I never would have had you down as a jazz man, Andy.
No, but there's a few jazz licks on albums, if you listen.
Excellent. And what would be your Monday morning mood boosting track, Andy?
There wouldn't be one because I'd be asleep. But if I'm going to have to put a track in there, my favourite Hendrix track is All Along the Watchtower, the Bob Dylan song. I mean,
Excellent.
The production on that, and I went into Electric Ladyland when I was in New York. I had to do some tape copying, and I said, let's do it at Electric Ladyland if they've got some time. Let's just go and do it. And I couldn't believe, it still had like cables running across the floor, here and there. It's probably not far different from when he was in there. This was in the mid-70s when I went there. So, I'm very, as you might hear, I'm quite interested in the technicalities of how these people did what they did,
And finally, for your mixtape, mate, a favourite track from Australian band?
But this was very difficult because obviously I wanted to say an AC/DC track, but because I know the Angels really well, and we recorded this song in the 90s, Am I Ever Gonna See Your Face Again by the Angels.
Excellent choice. You must have toured with them before in the past as well, right?
Well, we've done gigs with them, and I've got to know the Brewsters, and we did a Rock the Boat a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, and the singer from the Screaming Jets was with them.
Oh.
Yeah, and I've forgotten that how good it could be, with a front man again, but I've heard he's left. He's gone back to the Screaming Jets.
Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you for the show today, mate. Maybe not the Final Blitz, but possibly the Final Blitz Australian Tour coming to Perth, Astasphere on the 30th of October, right throughout Australia in November. It's metropolistouring.com for tickets and info. Safe travels down under, Andy, and we'll see you when you get here. Thank you so much, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Cheers, buddy. Take care.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's mixtape. If you enjoyed this show, then please subscribe to the podcast, rate it 5 stars, or leave comment on whichever platform you are listening. And don't forget, you can check out over 175 archive episodes just by visiting the mixtapepodcast.com. There you'll also find social media links, YouTube channel, and the radio show, including the songs chosen by this week's guest. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.